What's up, guys? Brady Fugel here. Welcome to Deeper Dives, the show for hardcore fans. We don't just dive deep, we dive deeper. Today, we are talking about the one and only System of a Down. And my guest today is the one and only JC from JC Rock and Metal Reviews. JC, thank you so much for coming on. And the first question I always ask is tell me about your history with System of a Down. When did you first get into them? How did you discover them? Your first album? Anything like that?
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, I this is one of those bands that I actually kind of discovered in real time. I discovered them when the album came out. I discovered them when Toxicity came out. I actually have a CD right here, and it was back in 2001. Interestingly, I think this album came out like a week before 9/11, and I was actually living in New York at the time, not in the city, but I was like in Long Island, and I was aware of the whole 9/11 thing, but
Mhm.
that's just a whole different story. But anyway, I think at that time I was getting into a lot of new metal music. I was really into Linkin Park, Korn, those bands, Limp Bizkit. So I was really getting into music. System of a Down was one of my favorites. I discovered them probably through MTV with the music videos with Chop Suey, Aerials, Toxicity. Those music videos were played on MTV constantly back in the day. And yeah, I really liked it. It's kind of like one of those bands. I know they like to like lump them into the whole like new metal scene, but they're their own thing. I mean, they're
Mhm.
you can't really like categorize them. They're kind of strange because they were very popular. I mean, this album, I think it sold like lots of,
Yeah.
I didn't look it up, but sold thousands of copies, and it was very popular all over the radio. And the music isn't really like that radio friendly when
Yeah.
you think about it. It's
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of like like close to like extreme metal at times. I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, I
there's
totally
lots
agree.
of like weird rhythms, and it's not like pop music or anything. It's just I don't know. There's something about like the I think like the vocals, the surge of vocals, I really like, and just the two vocalists, just like those like weird guitar riffs that are almost like repetitive. They kind of stick in your head. I think that was something that drew me to this album. And since then, I was a fan. And then then I would, yeah, I've been a fan ever since. I kind of went back and I ended up getting the rest of the albums, and I guess we'll talk about that in a later round. But yeah, and
Yeah.
then like this one, I ended up like discovering this one much later. So I didn't really start here. I started with Toxicity, and then I went with Steal Your Album. That's just what I don't have on CD. And I remember I told that story in the other video with Tom the Green Man where I kind of like streamed it, I recorded on a tape, and then yeah, these two albums I listened to them back in the day. I ended up buying them like much later on. So so yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been a fan of this band since Toxicity, since that album, and I think that's where it all started with me. Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. So for me, they were a band that like System of a Down was literally probably one of the first metal bands I ever heard. Because this style, the more kind of accessible, alternative, maybe new metal style, was what I grew up on. The first bands I ever
Yeah.
listened to was System of a Down, Disturbed, Linkin Park, all the bands like that. So I remember listening to this parts of this album and parts of Steal This Album like when I was really young, and I liked it then. And it's funny because like it took a long time because you listen to something when you're a kid and then you kind of forget about it for a while as you're growing up, and then
Yeah.
oftentimes when when you rediscover it as an adult, you like it even more, not just for the nostalgia, but in System of a Down's case, just me becoming so into music. I had this band that I listened to when I was a kid, and I'm like, wow, they're actually really good. Like they're really talented. Like the music is great. So it wasn't until probably like 2017, 2018 that I kind of rediscovered System of a Down and dove into all their albums again. And since then, like you said it, I'm sure we're gonna bring it up. It's several points throughout this video. Like they're such a unique band. They're completely one of a kind. They sound like nobody else. Like you said, they tend to get clumped into the new metal category or like the
Yeah.
Ozfest crowd, early 2000s stuff like that. But they're really completely one of a kind. They sound like no other band. So yeah, how this will work is we're gonna go through the band's chronological timeline, talk about every album, just give our thoughts on each album as well as when any maybe some major events that happened in the band's history. And yeah, we'll get started. So the band was formed in 1994 after Serj Tankian, Darren Malakian, and Shavo Odadjian, I think that's how you pronounce it, left their former band Soil, recruiting drummer Andy Khachaturian and taking their name from a poem Malakian wrote titled "Victims of a Down." They just yeah, so they inspired their name from a poem that Darren wrote. The band first made a series of demo tapes, simply titled numerically. The untitled 1995 demo tape was first released in 1995, followed by demo tape 2 in 96 and demo tape 3 in 97. Shortly after this, Khachaturian left the band and was replaced by John Domayan on drums, which that's kind of the same level as like Dave Mustaine leaving Metallica. Like this guy
Yeah.
Cacciatorian left right before System of a Down had their big break. That's interesting. But yeah, the band's their first major label recording was actually a song called, I don't know how to pronounce this, but High Enk, I think it's how it's pronounced. It translates to "We Are Armenian." It was featured on a compilation album, actually. They eventually recorded and released demo tape 4 in late 1997 before teaming with producer Rick Rubin and finally releasing their debut self-titled album in 1998, which has since been certified gold. JC, what are your thoughts on the debut self-titled?
Definitely one of my favorites. Again, like I said before, I discovered this one much later. I'm trying to remember when I found it. I think it was like years later. I think like after like the 2010s, like when it was easier to listen to stuff online and streaming and all that. So, but I liked it. It reminded me a lot of Toxicity, the first album. Really like these songs. It has some kind of like weird stuff. Like there were two singles. Sugar, that one's really cool. Has really cool. The music video is really cool. And Spiders, and I think that Spiders, that one's like a little like kind of like weirder, almost like a little more like a psychedelic, like a slower song. And then there are other songs. A lot of times with these songs, like they have like a lot of like long songs, and sometimes like when I look at the song title, I kind of like forget the song, but then I have to like look at the lyrics to remember what it is. But I think like there were songs like War, that one I like the chorus on that one, the Peephole, yeah, that one's like pretty cool, and pretty much this whole album is really good. I just the opener, Sweet Pea, that's another one. And again, it has like this nice flow. I mean, the songs are short; they're like 2 to 3 minutes long. I think there's like I'm looking at the track list here, the one page. The one song "Mind" is like 6 minutes, but it's like so a 40 minute album, 13 songs. It's just like a really good intro. And again, when I found it, I found it later, but I've always liked it. So yeah, really good album.
For sure. Yeah. So for me, like this was one of the ones that I didn't remember listening to when I was younger. So it was just like you. It was another one that I had to kind of rediscover. I discover it on my own after I was familiar with the rest of the catalog. And to me, how this album comes off is, and I'm curious if you agree with this. To me, it's probably the only album from them that I would consider classifiably new metal. That's just because I think a lot of the riffing, some of the vocal cadences, like there isn't a whole lot of like rapping, but he does Serge does employ a lot of like those really fast, like synced up vocal patterns with oftentimes rhythm sections on some of these songs. And it's an album that I think sets a good foundation for the future. I would, for my taste, it is probably one of their weaker ones, but I still love it. I mean, I love all their albums. And it's still like, even despite the fact that I would call it new metal, like it's still a very experimental and like an interesting form of new metal. Like they very much took that style and adapted it to their own and made it their own. Like they weren't over here sounding like Slipknot or Limp Bizkit or Cold Chamber or any other new metal
Yeah.
band from the time. Like they still they did new metal with this record, but they made it very unique to them. And I think this was a really good album for them to kind of build off of. And there's some stuff on here that you can kind of hear the foundation of what they would do in the future. Um, the biggest like examples of new metal on here for me would probably be for one the track Soil, just the riffing on there, the vocal cadences. The closer Pluck, and also like you mentioned, the lead single Sugar. I think those are just the best examples of them just doing a new metal sound, but making it their own. And the songs also, I think one thing that I like about specifically the ones on this album is that they have a lot of up and down dynamics, like the track "War" that you mentioned, because it's got the heavy parts, it's got like the more laid back parts, and the transitions are all really smooth. And "Soil" does that really well also. And then you have like the moodier parts, like you also mentioned, like "Spiders." That's a highlight for me on here. I love that song. And the over 6 minute long "Mind" is another one that has a lot of more down tempo, moody, kind of eerie parts, and the bass really shines for me on that song. And yeah, this is just a really solid debut album for me as well. So after this album was released, the band ended up touring extensively. It was successful for them, which is great. They ended up opening for the likes of Slayer, who I think the band went on record saying that Slayer was like their biggest influence. So they ended up opening for
Yeah.
Slayer after this album, which is awesome. They also opened for Fear Factory, Incubus, and they performed at Ozfest. So all that for just having one album out is I think very impressive. And then in September 2001, the band planned on launching their second album at a free Hollywood concert, but it was canceled abruptly after the parking lot was filled to nearly three times its capacity. This prompted fans to then riot and destroy the band's touring gear. I did not know this until I started doing research for this album. So yeah, they plan on giving away their album for free, and so many people showed up because they wanted it so bad, and they had to cancel, and then the big riot started. So I thought that was an interesting fact. But
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I
yeah,
never heard about it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then Toxicity arrived shortly after, and it was really the band's breakout album. It debuted at number one. It has since been certified three times multi-platinum. Chop Suey, it was the big single from this album and still their biggest song to date. It was removed from the radio due to its sensitive lyrics, given that it was released around 9/11. And
Yeah.
it's still the band's most successful song to date, despite that it was removed from a lot of radio stations, which I think is a testament to this band's talent. So, what are your thoughts on Toxicity?
So yeah, again, I touched on this before. This is where I discovered them. They were big, and I think I guess it kind of has like something to do with the timing with 9/11. I think back then it was the whole world, or at least the whole United States was kind of like
Mhm.
in a kind of weird state at that point. And I think like this was something that people needed. I think like they needed just like aggressive music just to kind of like help them cope with everything that was going on. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was big. I like the song. I mean, Chop Suey, I've heard it a lot. So I think it's like one of those songs. I mean, like I've heard so many times over the years. I mean, I like it, but I mean,
You like it, but you're
I
tired of
still
it.
like would probably go back to the other albums. And yeah, I like the opening is great. Prison Song.
Mhm.
I mean, they just start the album like giving all these like facts about like the prison system. Talking about the for-profit prisons there. Like, then there's one part where they like give all these like facts like all about like all these like prisons being built, and but everything is like song with like needles and yeah, it's kind of like weird lyrics, but like they kind of make you think. Like when the chorus it goes like pull a tapeworm out of your ass. I mean, they come up with these weird lyrics, but then when you think about it and you put it in the context of the song, they kind of make sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was like another song, Bounce. I think like they ended up using that. That was like used in like this like kids movie called The Secret Life of Pets. When
Hmm.
I only know that because my kids were small when that came out, and it was like that was like in that song. So that's pretty cool. What else is here? I mean, everything is good. Science, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Just like they have these songs that were like these. I think the choruses where they're repetitive, but they kind of like make the song memorable. But then like the rest of the song, Surge is just spitting out lyrics and just kind of like doing what they're doing. And Ariel's are like Psycho. This one is pretty cool. Psycho groupie, cocaine crazy. They keep repeating that over and over again. Definitely, I think like still, I mean, I still consider this my favorite album. It's just like front to back, and it's really it's just a killer album. So yeah,
All right.
that's what I think of this album. And
For sure. Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what you said. To me, it makes sense that this is their breakout album. It's probably the only record from them that I would say they pulled off having no filler whatsoever. There's a lot of memorable stuff on here. Like you said, Prison Song, the opener. The way this album starts, I mean, the one-two punch of Prison Song and Needles, and then Deer Dance and Jet Pilot, like it gets off to so much energy, like right away. Chop Suey is I was gonna make a very similar point to what you said actually. Like it's a good song, but like it's just so overplayed at this point. Like everyone's heard it a million times, but it's still a good song. It still has a place on the album. And then
yeah,
you get further in and you got the tracks like I said, Jet Pilot and Bounce and Shimmy, where it's like it just it's kind of them being goofy, but like the songs are still aggressive and like they pull off that balance so well because in general like goofiness is not something that I enjoy in most music, especially metal music, but System of a Down just they walk that fine line where like you said they could have lyrics like pull the tapeworm out of your ass or have
yeah,
or have or a song like Bounce where it sounds so goofy but like it's you still kind of take it seriously in a way because like it comes off more abstract, I think would be a good way of putting it, than just them fucking around. So
yeah,
but the songs on here, I mean, yeah, some of the deep cuts on here like Forest is super catchy. Science is a favorite of mine. I love the melodies on that track. Psycho, when I first rediscovered System of a Down, like I said in like 2018 2019 I think it was, like Psycho was like the song that I was really into from this album, like just right off my first time re-listening to it. And yeah, ATWA, that's a good one too. Some more up and down dynamics there. And obviously Aerials, that's another iconic song from them. The title track is a favorite of mine from them, another super iconic song. There's so many hits from this album. Like that's
yeah,
another thing. And then even like, the tracks like X or the closer Arto, which is kind of just like this exotic like instrumental type song.
yeah.
Yeah, like even I think those songs even work on here, and those songs aren't even songs like that aren't usually something again that I like from a metal album. And yeah, this album it took the foundations that the band established on the self-titled, and it amplified them, and it explored upon them, it built upon them, and it saw the band carve out a completely singular sound for them in not just new metal anymore, but just metal and rock in general, and just because of how successful this album was. But shortly after the release, several B-sides from Toxicity were leaked on the internet. Fans dubbed the collection of tracks Toxicity 2, and the band responded by insisting that they were actually unfinished songs for what would be their third album. They then entered the studio to finish them, and Steal This Album was released just over a year after Toxicity, and this is another album that has since been certified platinum. And we just talked about it, actually, like you mentioned earlier, on Tom the Rain Man's channel. So we probably won't have a whole lot of new things to say. But what I did like your story though about how you said you kind of did steal the album, right? Because you said you played it and then you had like a cassette recorder that like recorded it as it was playing, so then you listened to it on the.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, that I know. I'll tell it again quickly. I know it's a whole different video. So, I mean, basically, back in when this come out, 2002.
Yes.
You know, I first got internet in my house. We first got like a computer and a big desktop computer, a built big like Dell computer, and I remember just listening. There was just like on the internet, the back then we had dial-up internet, and they had this like one of the first like streaming services. I think it was called Rhapsody, and I think they gave me like 1 month free or something like that. So I had this streaming service, but basically they let you download music and it would like download into your computer, but you couldn't like move the songs. Not like today where you can like just like put it on your phone or whatever, or just like listen to it wherever you want with Bluetooth or anything. I mean, I wanted to listen to it in my gym, which I had in my basement. So I took a tape recorder and I transferred it to the tape. So I just basically played it on my computer. I transferred it to a cassette tape, and then I could bring the cassette tape downstairs and I could listen to it, while I work out in my home gym that was downstairs in my basement. So that's really why I did that, but it was like basically I kind of stole the album. But I like it. It's kind of like Toxicity Part Two, but I think it's still solid. I mean, it has lots of great songs. I mean, Inner Vision, that Mr. Jack, a slower, like plotting song, the IEAIO or whatever that one is. That one's good. And there's some cool, like deeper cuts, like Roulette. That's like more of like an acoustic track. Streamline, I think that was in like the one of those Scorpion
Scorpion
King
King.
movie.
Yeah, Scorpion King. Yep.
It's a yeah, it's a good album, and it's like almost as good as Toxicity. Again, like in my ranking, I rank it last, but being last with System of a Down is not a bad thing. It's just my least favorite out of the five. But I think it's just a solid album, and I like it a lot. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree with you also. I think the album is probably the one I would rank last, but it's still a good album. And I think like I think I might have mentioned this in Tom's video. I think the main reason I would rank it last is just because it doesn't really take the band's sound anywhere. Like to me, like the band has, their the self-titled sound, they have the sound of Toxicity, and then they have the sound of the double album. Whereas this one kind of just comes right after Toxicity, and then like you said, it does kind of come off. Even the fans said at the time, it does kind of come off as Toxicity too a little bit. The production, it pretty much is identical to Toxicity. Stylistically, I think some of these songs could have fit right on Toxicity as well. But all that being said, like it's still a very enjoyable album, as is all of their material for me. My favorite track on here has got to be Streamline. I like in this song, I really like the use of the band's odd time signatures. It just sounds very comfortable. Like it's one of those songs that it's in an odd time, but you don't really know because it sounds so like smooth. Whereas like other songs, by other bands, you can kind of tell because it's like a little, jostling. But this song does it really well, and it's also packed with emotion too. Like, you know, the main refrain being "I wasn't there for you," and the track is kind of about like grief and regret and loss and stuff like that, and it comes off very like impassioned. And then I've been listening a lot to the track Roulette, the acoustic track, which isn't really a song that I was super aware of, just being that it's so deep into this album, which I would consider,
Yeah.
yeah, which I would consider like their weakest, but still a good one. So since doing that video with for Dark Horses last week, where we talked about this album, I've been listening to this song since then, and it's a great song. It's got some good melodies. It's probably like I think it's the only song in the catalog that sounds like this from System of a Down, just being that it's a full on, straightforward acoustic track the whole time. And those are the last two songs on here, but there's some other stuff throughout. I mean, yeah, the opener Chicken Stew, Inner Vision, some great riffing on there. Theta Waves, I like the riffing there. Mr. Jack, huge highlight for me. Just another really catchy one that kind of just like it gets more and more weird as it progresses because like you don't really know what he's singing about, and then by the end of the song he's screaming "fuck you, pig," and it's like okay, it's an anti-police song.
Yeah.
So, but it's all pulled off really well. Highway Song's a good one. ADD is great. IEAIAIO, I think it is, is is one that like kind of brings this exotic nature to it. At least when he's saying the letters like that. I thought that split up things in the album a little bit. So like overall, like this is probably the only album from them that I would consider non-essential, just because it doesn't really build much off of Toxicity, but it's still a System of a Down album, and I like all their albums, and it's still a solid one overall. Then it has a good handful of tracks that I do come back to. So yeah, after this one, the band continued to tour before they recorded their next album, a double album, in 2004. It ended up being both Mesmerize and Hypnotize. Mesmerize was released first in May of 2005, once again debuting at number one and eventually being certified double platinum. So, JC, what are your thoughts on Mesmerize?
Yeah, another great album. So when this one came out, I didn't buy the CD, but I remember downloading a couple of songs that I used to like just burn. I would like burn like songs to CDs that I would like download from iTunes, and then I would just like make just like CD mixes, and then again I there were a couple songs I think I burned like the song Cigaro. That's just a great fun song. It just really fast and heavy song has those great lyrics. Just a really fun song. Um, the song titles are, are pretty funny here. Like the cocaine makes me feel like I'm on the song.
Mhm.
Again, that one's really cool. Let me see if I can pull up some lyrics here. I like to read these. She's like heroin. That, is that on this album or is that the other one?
That's on Hypnotize. Yeah.
That's the other album. Okay, actually, I'm pulling up the wrong album. So yeah, quick question. Lost in Hollywood. I like that one. There's Old School Hollywood and Lost in Hollywood. Kind of different songs, but
Yeah. Yeah.
really good. The single was BYOB, so that's like a kind of like that one. Kind of reminded me of Classic System. Kind of like sounds like something you hear on maybe like Toxicity again. Radio Video. That one has some. That one has fun. Like the
Almost like
Hey
reggae.
man, look at me rocking out. I'm on the radio. But it was a song, Cigar with those lyrics. Let me read the lyrics. I know they're kind of explicit, but I'll read them anyway. My cock is much bigger than yours. My cock can walk right through the door. It's just that's just funny lyrics. It just
Yeah.
and I mean I like this album. I think I like this one. I don't know. I'm not sure. I might like the. I always go back and forth which one I like better. I think I might like Hypnotize better, but I don't know. They're like almost equal. I like them a lot, but it's just a really solid album. It's really good. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And you know, this one, it's always hard choosing for me between this one and Hypnotize. And I think they're very, very close to one another. So like I
Yeah.
eventually will probably do a discography ranking for System of a Down, but it's going to be hard to choose which one. And I think they kind of flip back and forth a lot for me too. One thing I do
Yeah.
notice about Mesmerize that might give Hypnotize the edge is that I do think structure-wise, some of these songs are a bit more simplistic, and playing-wise, they're a bit more simplistic. Like what was the song? Revenja. That's one that kind of just has a lot of just that, chugging as the riffing. Same thing with Violent Pornography, which like these are two songs that like, are still good overall. And I think people like them a lot, especially because of these lyrics, like kind of like what you mentioned. But both of those songs, they kind of just do a lot of just somewhat monotonous chugging as the riff. So that might be one thing that gives Hypnotize the edge is that I think the more straight, this might be System of a Down's just most straightforward album stylistically, but it's
Yeah.
still good. I still love it. I mean, I remember hearing BYOB when I was a little kid, and I was like obsessed with that song. And it's still like it's a one of a kind song completely. Like it's got like the aggressive, chunky riffing. It's got those, like you said, bordering on extreme parts, especially when the double bass kicks in. But then like you got these almost like it's got like this party song vibe at the same time to it in those verses, and it's such a unique song, and it's still a great one, still one of their best. A lot of people hate on old school Hollywood. That's one that like it's
I
another one.
like that one. Yeah.
I like that one too, and it's another like one of the more straightforward ones. But I don't know why it gets hate. Like it's got the weird lyrics, which I mean, System fans like, right? I mean, it's talking about Tony Danza and and Frankie Avalon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song was actually inspired because Darren Malakian was like part of a celebrity baseball game with some of them. So I mean, it's
Oh.
funny, and like the song, but the song still goes kind of hard. I mean, it's just the riffing. It's more straightforward, but it's got a lot of energy to it. And yeah, there's other songs, Radio Video, like I mentioned, it's got kind of like this reggae leaning bridge section, which I think is interesting. Just so it sounds almost like tropical, and it's got that syncopation to it that makes it just really catchy. Figaro is slamming, obviously, and I think maybe the one song I don't come back to from this album would be the cocaine song. It's just really short,
Yeah.
and the riffing again is kind of straightforward. There isn't as much going on there, but it's still like a fun song. It's not something I would skip, but if I had to, label any song on here filler, it would probably be that one. Lost in Hollywood's a good closer, more somber, more emotional, and then you have songs like Revenge of Figaro, Sad Statue, where the band really cranks up the heaviness. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to choose between Mesmerize and Hypnotize for me. But yeah, we'll move on. So eventually, a Hypnotize was released a few months later in November of 2005, also debuting at number one, and also since being certified platinum. What are your thoughts on Hypnotize?
Yeah. Again, I mean, nothing much else to say. It's kind of like an album. It's probably like just as good. I was like, like I said, I'm not like sure which one I like better. I think I might like, I don't know, I might like Mesmerize a little better about. This one has like one of my favorite songs, "Lonely Day." I really like that's like one of my favorites. It's a softer, more emotional song, but I definitely like it a lot. This one starts off heavy with attack. That's just like kind of classic System of a Down, but it's just the ripping, the attack. Hypnotize, Stealing Society. I like that one. What else? Vicinity of Obscenity.
Terracotta
Kind
Pie.
of like a weird song when it had like the terracotta.
Yeah,
That one. She's Like Heroin. Again, that's another good song. Soldier Side, I like that one more. Like it's kind of good, like a melodic closer. So definitely, I get it's. I would say like just as good. I kind of like go back and forth of which one I like better, whether it's Hypnotized or Mesmerized. But I don't know. I might like Mesmerized better, but again, it's they're very close. Yeah.
for sure. And I agree. And like I think it was hard, but I wanted to come to a decision for this video. And I think as of right now, I will give Hypnotize the edge slightly over Mesmerize for me. Just because I think one thing that this album has going for it is that it's a lot more dynamic in a sense that
Yeah,
they went to the poles more. Like some of their heaviest stuff and some of their most melodic, accessible stuff is on this album.
yeah,
On the heavy side, you obviously have the opener Attack, which is one of my favorite songs from that period. Like that one, and then the next track, Dreaming. I mean, they both have some very prominent blast beats, and they still have the up and down dynamics the whole time. Tentative is a track that's really dissonant, and that also adds to the heaviness a lot. But then you also have tracks like you mentioned, Lonely Day, which I mean, when you hear the intro of that track, like that almost gives me like post grunge vibes a little bit, which is fitting of the time.
yeah,
Yeah, just in that kind of somber, clean guitar intro. But then the song overall, like um, it does bring the emotion just because it brings to mind those feelings of feeling lonely and being isolated in a sense, and it makes it kind of relatable in a sense because I think that's something everyone has felt at some point in their lives. But also the title
yeah,
track, Hypnotize and Holy Mountains, I would also probably clump in there as two songs that some of the more melodic, accessible stuff in the catalog, but I mean, these songs are both still very memorable. Holy Mountains is a favorite of mine from this album as well. And yeah, there's other stuff on here, like there's the weird stuff on here, like Vicinity Obscenity, the banana terracotta pie, but it just, I saw I saw a video on Instagram where it was like, Korn, Linkin Park, Slipknot all talking about how depressed they were. And then System of a Down just, they're like, terracotta pie. And it just,
yeah,
and then yeah, She's Like Heroin, kind of a weird one too, talking about selling ass and stuff like that. So I mean, it's funny. Like these songs are funny, but like they fit on this album, and it's just System of a Down. Everything we love about System of a Down is on this album, and I think it's another underrated one in the catalog too, because I think most fans would prefer Mesmerize just because I think Mesmerize is a little more consistent throughout, and as far as its heaviness. But I like the fact that this album kind of is more all over the place. It's really heavy.
yeah,
It's some of the heaviest stuff they've done, and it's some of the most melodic and softer stuff that they've done too. And then yeah, the closer Soldier Side is a great way to end the album as well. UFIG is very good too. So this is it's right now. I think I would give Hypnotize the edge over Mesmerize slightly, but that very well could change as the years pass. But yeah, so that was the last album because they haven't wanted to do anything since. But after this was released, a biography was actually written about the band by Ben Myers. It was published in 2006. It's called System of a Down Right Here in Hollywood. Shortly after that, the band officially went on hiatus in 2006. They formed some side projects. Malakian started Scholars on Broadway, who actually just dropped an album last year. And then Serge
yeah,
started doing his solo material. He dropped that EP in 2024 that I actually thought was pretty good. So if any System of a Down fans haven't checked out that EP, I would recommend it because it does bring to mind some of that. It does scratch that System of a Down itch a little bit.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah,
Yeah. So I would shout that EP out. I don't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but yeah. And then they officially reunited in 2010 and resumed touring, playing a series of big name festivals in Europe. But since reuniting, the band has given kind of conflicting words about whether or not there will be any new material. And there was even some kind of conflict within the band and them kind of passing blame on one another as to why isn't there any new music. So Essentially, I think it's just creative differences as to why, there hasn't been a new System of a Down album since Hypnotize. But the band did release a double single, Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids, in 2020 to raise awareness of warfare in Armenia. JC, what are your thoughts on these two singles?
Yeah, yeah, but I like them. Yeah, I remember I like them. I remember they came out. I think my channel was like very new
Uh,
when both of these singles came out, so I remember that. Definitely like classic System of a Down sound. I mean, they haven't lost anything. I mean, I think it was like I think one of them was like a little more. I think one more was a little more classic sounding, and the other one was a little more kind of like extreme sounding. But definitely, I'm trying to remember which one was which. But yeah, I liked them. I remember I did like a short video on them, like when that came out. It was just what they call Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids. I think Genocidal Humanoids was one of like
that was the
the
heavier
more
one.
extreme one, and then the other one, Protect the Land, was that one had the music video when they're talking about the. It was more like straightforward. At least that's what I remember. But yeah, I like the songs a lot.
I agree. And
Yeah,
listening back on these, like I really like Genocidal Humanoids because that's a track that it's just has a lot more energy to it.
yeah,
And Protect the Land is good too. It has some good melodies. I think that song's a little long because it's like over 5 minutes long, and it's kind of just it's
yeah,
a little it comes off a little sluggish for me.
yeah,
But I like the sentiment of both of these songs too. I like that they released them to kind of raise awareness about warfare and their home country of Armenia. So I mean, it was good to at least get something after 15 years. And I remember it was a big deal when those singles dropped. It was like, holy shit, there's new System of a Down songs. And I think everyone was freaking out, like, oh, is it going to be an album? Is it going to be an album? And, obviously it wasn't. And I think they said it wasn't going to be, but at least they gave
yeah,
us something new. So,
yeah.
yeah, I was still glad to get them. So that is pretty much the band's history up to this point. I mean, they still play some shows here and there. And, now we're going to give our top three System of a Down songs. So, JC, what's your pick for your number three System of a Down song?
Yeah, my number three, I'm gonna go back to the beginning. I kind of went back and forth between Spiders and Sugar, but I'm going with Sugar. I think that's just really just like a fun song. It introduces the band. Uh, Definitely awesome music video. I think that was the one with like that. They have like that news reporter in the beginning, and it has that like really cool like eccentric like guitar riffing, and it introduces the band. So yeah, that's gonna be my number three.
Yeah, I have kombucha in my fridge. I should have been drinking it because they talk about kombucha in the song too. So
Oh, yeah.
that would have been fitting. But so my number three, interestingly enough, I gave to Spiders. So I thought for a second we might have had the same number three, but not quite. But the Spiders is a great one from the debut as well. I love how moody it is. Like it's almost eerie in a sense. I have a very clear vision of listening to this song because so I go on runs. And it's
Yeah,
oftentimes my favorite time to run is like, sunset time or like dusk. And I was running at this forest, and there's the forest is split because there's a big road that goes down the middle, and there's a bridge that goes over the road. I had this clear vision of like hitting the top of that bridge, and like there was a sunset, and like or the sun had just set, so it had like that kind of the glow of like a post sunset. It was like this blue glow, and I remember hearing the song Spiders and looking into that and just being in the middle of this bridge with like the woods on both sides. And it's one of those parts where it's like it gives you some strong imagery. So like then when you listen to the song back, it instantly like takes you
yeah.
back to that moment. So that's one of those moments for me. And I just love the song. I years ago I actually recorded a full cover of it where I did all the instruments and
Oh,
stuff.
cool. Yeah.
It was a fun one to do. It was a fun one to do, and it's just it's System of a Down doing to me one of their strengths when they do go for that more kind of melodic, moody sound. I think they execute it really well. Aerials being another good instance of that. And yeah, so Spider's my number three pick. What's your pick for number two?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with something off of Toxicity. I'm gonna go with Prison Song. Yeah, I decided to go with a deeper cut. I mean, I like singles, but I've heard them a lot. Prison Song, just one of the best like openers. They just start off. They're trying to build a prison, and then like the dun, dun, dun. I love that guitar riff, and then it just goes back and forth. Then you have those like they kind of like go from the serious where they're talking about drugs and prisons and violence, all that, and then like Darren comes in with the weird lyrics. I buy my crack, my smack, my bitch right here in Hollywood.
Yep.
He comes in with those lyrics, and then, like I was saying before, they and then they start like spitting out all these like statistics. When that they have like the research of drug policy and all that, and mandatory minimum sentences and all that. So it kind of like they go from like the seriousness to just like that kind of like the kind of like the weird, strange lyrics, and then just like those the choruses that stick in your head. Trying to build a prison. Like this band likes to use like a lot of repetition, but they don't do it like too much, but they do it like enough just to kind of like make things memorable, and it kind of like balances the songs out. So yeah, that's gonna be my number two. This is gonna
All
be
right.
Prison Song.
Yeah, I think that's an honorable mention for me for sure. A
Yeah,
few honorable mentions, yeah, Prison Song, just something man. Prison Song, Holy Mountains, Streamline, BYOB. Those are honorable mentions for me, just that I just thought of.
yeah,
But I love Prison Song also. Great heavy way to start. Toxicity, very memorable track. My number two is also an album opener, but for me it is Attack off of Hypnotize.
yeah,
Just a vicious way to start the album, just right away, like you get the blast beats and then the it calms down. The up and down dynamics on this song are just absolutely like so smooth sounding. The fact that it can just drop out into those melodic verses and then pick back up with that kind of bouncy pre-chorus and then going into the full chorus. And I love the way that song it has this like halftime switch up in the at the end of the song too that just crushes so hard. This is just overall such one of the heaviest songs they ever wrote. I love the different influences in here. So yeah, Attack is my number two pick. And then what's your pick for the best System of a Down song? Number one.
okay. I'm going with Lonely Day,
Hmm.
and yeah. So that one is from the what's it from? Mesmerize, right? Or
Hypnotized.
Hypnotize.
Yeah.
So Lonely Day again. It's when they're softer songs, when they're ballads, but I think it's just one of the song. One thing about like music. I grew up in the '80s, and lyrics were all about like partying and having a good time, and like whatever, like being heavy metal. And then in the '90s, everything was more alternative. Things start to get like a little more serious and talking more about like relevant events. Then in the 2000s, one thing about new metal bands, everything from I think it started with like Korn, Linkin Park. They would like write songs that were very like relatable, dealing with things that people are feeling that might not be things that people were comfortable talking about. So, like one
Totally.
song from Linkin Park I would like was Numb. I feel so numb, and things like that. This one is Such a Lonely Day, talking about like the loneliest day of my life. And I think it's something that everyone has always like related to. So I think that's why I've always liked it. It's just one of those songs that it's just something, not a lot of lyrics. I mean, like the lyrics are fairly simple, such a lonely day and it's mine, the loneliest day of my life. But it's just one of those songs that just I like to listen to, just kind of like just to kind of like relate to ways I felt in the past. So,
Yeah.
but that's going to be my number one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, good number one pick.
yeah,
It is a song that I think, and I think you nailed it when you said that, those new metal bands did a great job of kind of just being more relatable and just
yeah,
talking about things that, metal being this, especially in the 80s and 90s, like this like hyper masculine, like tough guy music.
yeah,
And it was bands like Linkin Park and Slipknot and System of a Down where that they started to kind of appeal to more, they got deeper than just being,
yeah,
tough guy metal. And System of a Down maybe does that the most because they just about goofy they sound. So, but yeah, Lonely Day is a great pick. My number one pick is in a similar vein because it's also a big single. I'm giving it to the Toxicity title track. This was one of the first songs that I ever listened to by them. I remember listening to it when I was a kid, and I loved it then, and I still love it now. And this is one of the songs, kind of on the contrary to Chop Suey, where like we've both heard it a million times and it's good, but like everyone's kind of tired of it. Toxicity is one that I feel like I've also heard a lot, but I'm not really tired of it. And I think like it
yeah,
just it might just be because I prefer the songwriting of the song. I mean, it has again kind of a bit of everything for System because it's a bit moodier in the verses and then the chorus is a bit heavier. It gets really heavy in the bridge. This is another song that I would love to do a full band cover of. I have a long list of songs I
okay,
want to do that with, But this is one that I would. This is probably my pick for System of a Down for their yeah. This is my pick for their best song, and it's super memorable, super catchy the whole time. It's got everything I can ask for from them, honestly. So yeah, my that's my pick, Toxicity title track for their best song. And yeah, so the last question we're gonna answer is, what do we hope to hear from them in the future? And for this, it's interesting because this is the first band that I've talked about on this channel with anybody where it's up in the air whether they'll ever have new material out. And for me, and let me know if you agree with this. I feel like it kind of adds to their legacy, the fact that they had such a short discography. Because like other bands, like like some of their peers, like Korn or Slipknot, like they ended up putting out kind of some duds. Whereas
Yeah,
System of
yeah,
a Down, like who knows? Maybe if they would have kept going, were to have kept going, maybe they would have put out a dud. But they didn't, and these 5 albums are just so good and so like tight and so lean. Like it's a very easy like discography to approach, which I think opens up the band to a lot of new fans in the future. Whereas
yeah,
look at Korn's discography or Seven Dust, they had 14, 15 albums. Like that's a
yeah,
lot to get into. Whereas System only has five, and I think it kind of adds to their legacy that the fact that they had such a short career. I would say similar things to, other bands that had, five, six, maybe seven, eight albums and called it quits and are some of the most legendary bands ever. Like think of Pantera, think of Death, Nirvana, even on the more rock side of things. Like
yeah,
these are all bands that like have shorter discographies, but they're legendary bands just because of the fact that their discography ends so abruptly almost kind of adds to their legacy in a way. But
yeah.
so and because of that, I feel like I would be content. I think I'd be okay if they didn't release another album. Maybe like they did in 2020, maybe like a single or two would be great. But for now, like we have Serge's solo work. I mean, if he puts out maybe an album or another EP like he did in 2024, that is as enjoyable as it was, I'd be happy. And if they do release an album, like that's great. I'd be happy either way. I think is the main point I would try and make here. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah. I mean, would I like another album? Yeah, of course. I mean, I would like, but again, everything like you said, it's they didn't keep going. I mean, like a lot of these bands from that time, they kept putting out albums, and then eventually they have so many albums. There are a few duds in there. I think with this band, there's kind of like a lot. You can kind of like there's more to explore because you have Serge's solo stuff, which is mostly different. It doesn't sound like System of a Down. Some of it does. Like every now and then, like he'll put a song on one of his solo albums that kind of like sounds a little bit like System of a Down. Scores on Broadway, they have what 2 or 3 albums.
Hmm.
I mean that's another one. Again, they're different, but there are like a little similarities. So it's kind of like if you're a fan of System, you could be a fan of Scars of Broadway. So kind of like I said, like they have been releasing some solo stuff under different names to kind of help kind of like scratch that itch if you want something new. But
Yeah,
I think as far as another album, I mean, I would say they're probably not. Like I don't think they will.
yeah,
But I think they're just going to continue. Just I think Surge is going to release more stuff, and I'm sure Scars on Broadway will release more stuff. And
yeah.
I don't know, we might get some other band from other members where they kind of like do some other project, which that's probably more probable that we'll get something from other band members that kind of sound similar to this, but not the same. So I think that's the most probable. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. I agree. Like I would love to hear another album, but anything that these guys do, I would definitely check out. I want to shout out one band that I think like don't get me wrong, System of a Down is a completely one of a kind band. But I think there's
Yeah.
another band, a newer band that I would encourage System of a Down fans to check out. And I wonder if you've heard of them too. They're called 12 Foot Ninja. They're Australian. They have 3 albums out. And they're just another one of those bands, kind of in that same vein as System of a Down, in the sense that they don't limit themselves. They don't sound like they're trying to, just follow a certain metal formula. They just do their own thing, and they also sound pretty weird in a sense. Like they do a lot of funk stuff. The vocalist, he has a very unique voice as well. They bring to mind, it's kind of like System does sometimes, bring to mind some of these kind of exotic melodies that I think add to the music. So I would highly recommend anyone check out 12 Foot Ninja if you're a System of a Down fan. I would most recommend their second album, Outlier. I want to shout them out because they're a great band and they're pretty underrated. Have you heard of 12 Foot Ninja?
No, no, I've never listened to them, and now I mean I'll probably like to check them out like later on. I mean I'm interested in hearing them now. So
Yeah,
yeah, I've
and
never listened to them.
they're weird. I would describe them as kind of like alt metal, almost like proggy alt metal a little bit, but they do a lot of like funk stuff, like I said, and they get heavy at times too, like they scream a little bit. So I'd highly recommend them. So yeah, that's all we have left for this episode of Deeper Dives. JC, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you all my viewers for watching. Remember to comment below your thoughts on System of a Down, your favorite albums by them, how you would rank their albums, what are your top three songs by them, anything System of a Down, comment below. I'd love to discuss it further. And until next time, thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.